So it's going? Yeah.
I thought I was not number one. Apparently there's 2 people ahead of me. I know.
Not 3.
Good call.
Would you have this morning, Joe?
Oh,
Good. That's on my list.
All right, can everybody hear me in the back? I'm pretty much of a loudmouth anyway. I don't know why they give me a microphone, but we'll see how that works out. I may end up throwing it on the desk here and still yelling at it. I'm going to go ahead and get started because it's right around the time for us to go through. Anyway, this session is on social engineering, and I want to talk about some things that you can do, some examples of what we've seen. Before we get started, everybody has the typical disclaimer. Mine's no different. The opinions and the processes and things I'm going to talk about here are my opinion. A lot of them will reflect industry best practices and are not necessarily what our company does or the exact processes that we do, nor do they endorse any of them that are on there. Moving on from that, now that the lawyers are happy. Social engineering, we're going to talk about what it is, what's changed during the last year, some different data gathering techniques. Who here went to the Google hacking session? Good information. We're going to talk real key over that. There's been a lot of different sessions that are already covering some of that information, so I'm not going to go too crazy into it. Some examples and some techniques that were used in some of the recent attacks over 2011 and how it worked. Some policy components and things that you can implement in your organization to help to kind of strengthen the defenses against it. And we're going to talk about training and what you should have in your user training program that will help prevent social engineering. You're never going to 100% get rid of it. There's always going to be somebody that's too busy or doesn't care and doesn't mind. And then we're going to look at auditing and how you can test yourself before somebody who's malicious does that for you. First off, we're talking about social engineering and what it is. It's real easy to define, but basically the idea is I want to manipulate someone into giving me information that they normally wouldn't. If I called you up and said, give me the information on how your computer's set up, what operating system, what apps you're using, what versions, because I'm going to attack your company. I don't think anybody would give it to me. They'd go, no, absolutely not. But if I call up and say I'm with IT and we're doing a configuration check for your PC, can you tell me which version you're running? I'll probably get a little bit more. If I have some more information, well, we know that you have an IBM. What version of IBM, which IBM are you running? And the more information I have and the more I can subtext that to that person, the more information they're going to give me because I'm going to sound legit. But when we talk about what's changed this year, obviously the hacktivism has been huge. A lot of the breaches, when we're talking about security breaches, information being released, Anonymous, LawSec, those guys, some of the sub-organizations under there, they have different operations, Operation Green Rights, and things that they were whatever the topic du jour is that they want to go against. Sometimes there's some little subgroups. The intrusions are making front page news now, so it's not like where previously where your organization might get some information or somebody might get in and get a little bit, and the tech papers will talk about it, things like that. where now you have Fox Business and the CNN and the Wall Street Journal. They're all talking about it now when something like that happens. So it really can hurt. The attacks continue year after year after year going upward because it's really simple. And the real costs, $25,000 to $100,000 per incident in actual costs to go through and remediate what was lost. And the biggest cost to that can then come to reputation. Now you're out on the internet or you're out on the news and they say, your company was attacked, they leaked all kind of customer information. Do I want my customer information in that system? No. The skills required to do this continue to keep plummeting. If you look out on the internet, there's no shortage of free tools, easy to use, very simple, that I can use to social engineer someone, to build an email, to skim a web page and make an exact copy of that page and put it up on the internet. Takes about 2 minutes if you're moving slowly. So things we were talking about, tools, Backtrack. A lot of people have used Backtrack. Backtrack, if you're not familiar with it, is an entire Linux distribution that has all these tools built into it. So I don't even have to try to go out and look for individual tools. I just load Backtrack on my machine, and I got all the tools that I need. It has a social engineering toolkit built right into it. So there's no need for me to really go out and look for all these tools. It's real simple. Make one image, I'm done. I got everything at my disposal. I'll play around with it for a little while, I'll learn it. If you go out on YouTube and look for videos on social engineering or using the social engineering toolkit, there's tons of them. To sit here and show you step by step how to craft an attack, how to put the information together, and how to send it out. Maltego, if anyone hasn't used Maltego before for gathered, when they were talking about using the internet as an investigative tool, I was surprised that they didn't talk about that because Maltego will scare the heck out of you. If you go out, if you've never used this tool and you put your name or your company name into it and they have transforms to it, so I can put my domain in there and say, show me everything about my domain. It'll then show me every email address, every phone number, names, people's information that are all associated with that domain. It'll look at the registrar, it'll show me who the domain's registered to. I can get DNS server names. I can find a lot of information in about 2 clicks. And it's actually, it's frightening if you do it on yourself. We talk about Facebook and social media as a tool because it really is. There's so many people that are out on social media right now sharing way, way too much information. LinkedIn is a huge one for that. And usually it's the IT people. Everybody wants to post their whole resume out on LinkedIn on what we do. This is what I do every day. I work on this, this, and this. That's great, but at the same time, if I'm looking to find out specifics on how I can target you, if I know you deal with firewalls, I'm responsible for administering the firewalls. If I'm trying to craft an email targeted right to you, I have a little bit more information to use. If I know that I put out there, hey, right now we're evaluating new vendors for routers, I'll use that. And then when we talk about attacks, it's not a hit and run. There's no hit and run where they come in, grab the information, and take off. The advanced persistent threats are continuing where they put information onto your machine, they get into a machine, they compromise the network, and then they're looking for ways to go further than that. Dig more into more information. Can I get on the network shares from that machine? It's not just hitting, okay, I'm going to see if I can get some login information and then I'm going to get out of there. No, a lot of times you find they're still hanging around. When we're talking about data gathering techniques, there's a lot of different ways to get information. If you saw some of the information and you were one of the people that went to the Google hacking, they talked a lot about using the advanced operators. Diggity, the tool that they were talking about there too, it's fantastic. I use it a lot. The alerts Diggity is awesome. It will just you put in your domains, you put in what you're looking for, that you're responsible for, that your company owns, and it throws up whenever someone tries to Google hack you. Well, it throws up the information that someone could use to Google hack you. The cached versions of the pages, another biggie. Open social networking sites. If you have a social networking site, Facebook, if anybody besides 10-year-olds is still using MySpace, you have any sites on there. If you have a Picasa or a web-based photo account, if it's sitting wide open, you're at risk. There's no ifs, ands, or buts there, because we post so much information about where we're going, what we're doing, what we're working on. I'm having a bad time at work. We post so much information that's out on the social media sites that it's a treasure trove for someone trying to social engineer you. I know everything you like, because you go through and like all the pages. We had somebody at my work that I won't name, but I said, I know where you bank. I know you have a Chase Freedom card. And he says, how do you know that? Because you liked it on your Facebook page. You know, it says right there that, you know, you signed up and you liked the Chase Freedom card. So I know your bank, I know what card you have. If I'm trying to use that, it's not real hard to do that. We talked about Maltego and how that works a little bit. The company website is fantastic if you're target and you're trying to hit C-level executives. Because every company wants to push how fantastic their leadership team is. So they want to put out there, hey, he graduated from this university in this year with this degree, and he's really active in the United Way, and he's participating in the American Heart Association Heart Walks, and all these things. So is it necessary? Yeah, but understand that that's information that I can then use to try to find a way in. Job postings, another great one. If I can find somebody, maybe out on LinkedIn, that says, I'm the manager of IT security, and at the same time I found a job posting from a month ago for a manager of IT security, he's brand new. Maybe he doesn't necessarily know everything about his predecessor. So when I come in saying, hey, I'm a vendor, I used to work with your predecessor. We have an agreement already. I have paperwork that we have an agreement. Well, he might not know that. Here's all your information. This is what I need from you to now continue our agreement, and we'll continue to work together. I would like to think that he would say, well, let me check on that. But you'd be surprised how often it doesn't happen. There are a lot of people who have not only online resumes on a thing like Monster or on the job search site that the average Joe can't really just go out and look up for you. But we also have a lot of people who have just a personal webpage. And they have an entire resume from the time they graduated college till now, including all of their history of when they went to school, where they went to school, what their degrees were, all their things that they like to do, hobbies, things like that on a resume. I got an active email address and I got an active phone number. That's way more information than I need to get started. From there, it's really simple to go through and attack that. Physical gathering. It's a little riskier, but sometimes it happens. If my goal is to get into your company, get a laptop out or get some physical data out of the company, I'm going to start doing some physical gathering. I'm going to go there and I'm just going to hang out. I'm going to watch. Do the employees all tend to come in at a certain time? Is 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock the start time? When they're coming in, is everybody swiping their badge? Is one person swiping a badge and everybody just walks in behind them and they hold the door open? That's good information for me to know, because I know there's 20 people coming in. If I come walking in carrying something, I can just walk right in the door. If you have a place where every single person is required to swipe their badge, my wife works at a company. She said, if you swipe the badge and you hold the door open for somebody, you're fired. They will fire you right there on the spot. A little extreme, but you know, it makes it so that they don't want to do that. They know that that's the possibility, so they don't do it. So it encourages people to not do that. Where are your smokers gathering at? Or everybody out smoking? Can I walk up and just light a cigarette and stand there and chit-chat with them? When they're ready to walk back in the door, oh, I'll walk back in with you guys. Can I get in the door? Where are the guards? Are the guards just sitting in the desk in the front lobby? Do they get up and wander around? Where are the dumpsters at? Is there a camera on them? Does people walk past the dumpster area? Can I get in there as someone looking to do some dumpster diving? Can I get in and get some data out of the garbage can and get out before somebody sees me? If it's nice and hidden back behind a building with a big fence around it, no cameras, no nothing, that's simple. Get in there, you see in a lot of offices, they're trying to hide the dumpster. They don't, it aesthetically doesn't look good, so we're trying to hide it with a nice pretty fence. And yeah, but that gives me lots of privacy, that if I'm looking to gather information, I can get in there and get over the dumpster, just keep checking bags out. It helps even more if you have a company who's being environmentally conscious and they sort all their paper. You have all the paper in one dumpster, all the food trash and things like that, because then I don't have to go through all the food waste and stuff like that to get to the stuff I really want. So I don't have to dig through someone's spaghetti lunch to find that password that someone wrote down. When we look at examples, I'm going to go through these real quickly. I mean, we've all probably seen a lot of these kind of things where the email will come from, it's coming from PayPal. PayPal is always a huge, huge target because I'm really rolling the dice on banks. If I try to figure out what local bank you're using, or maybe you're using a national branch, but a lot of people use PayPal, so I can cast a very wide net with PayPal. So if I'm trying to get banking and financial information, real quick hit and run, PayPal's a good one. But you see, when it's coming from XQCJR at customerservice.com, thinking that's not probably from PayPal. And the same thing with the LinkedIn. Here's a LinkedIn invite. Looks pretty much like any other LinkedIn invite I get. We get plenty of them. I go to a conference like this, I'll talk to a lot of people. I'll get a bunch of LinkedIn invites. Am I going to specifically remember every single name for every person I talk to? No, but if I created something and put them in there, I probably would click on it and say, let me click on the LinkedIn profile to see who that is. Once I clicked on it, that's it, they're already in. Depending on what they're trying to exploit, they've already gotten me from me clicking on the link. The phone calls, you get a lot where people call and ask for a password. We have a serious problem. There's a virus outbreak on the network and it's coming from your computer. So we need to go through and change your password. Here's your new password. In order for me to change it, I wanted to make sure it was a robust one. So here's a nice long password for you. We need your old password so we can change it to that one. And they'll be, yeah, okay, yeah, sure, yeah. Here it is, it's, John 123. All right, thanks. Give it about 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and that'll take effect. Well, meanwhile, in 30, 45 minutes, I've already logged into the account, and I'm using it already. So I'm hoping that it's going to take 45 minutes for them to finally say, oh, it's not working, and call the help desk. Maybe another 10, 15 minutes to get the help desk to reset the password. In the meantime, I've gotten what I need. Vendor calls. We get them all the time. Vendors call, hey, who are you using for your DLP provider? Who are you using for your firewall? We think we can beat their prices. Once I've got that information, I can use it. If I call in and say, hey, who's your toner go through? Who do you buy toner off of? I think our company can beat them, but when I send the quote in, I want to make sure my price is compared directly to them so that we know that we're giving you a better deal. And I say, well, HP, we buy directly from HP. Oh, okay, good. So I know HP is the ones providing the toner. So go to any thrift store, anywhere in this country probably, at least the 3 or 4 that I've been to, you can always find shirts with tech logos on them, HP, Compaq, different logos on them. Go out to eBay. I'll find an HP shirt or I'll make one that looks convincing. I'll show up on the site with a couple of empty boxes that look like toners, ask for that employee, get in the door. Now I got a couple empty boxes I can store laptops in if I need to. We had examples where people have called and said, you're infected with a virus, and the person was adamant. No, I'm a virus scanner. I didn't get any alerts from my virus scan. It's all up to date. It's all patched. I can't have a virus. And I said, well, here, let me show you. And they take them into the Windows security log. And of course, if you know the Windows security log, everything you do, logging in, logging out, changing things, it amasses information. And most average end users don't go out and clear that. So yeah, I can go into the security log and show you all these security events. Look at all these events. That's from the virus. If I can convince somebody of that, then they immediately trust me. Oh, well, he's calling to help me. He's showing me that I have the problem that he's talking about, and he's calling to help me. He's my buddy. No, I'm trying to get in, but the physical ones, people dropping thumb drives, this happens so much, and I cannot believe that people still, at this time, will fall for it. But we'll go into a parking lot, into a lobby, take a couple thumb drives, load them up with malware, drop them in the parking lot. Somebody picks it up, ooh, that's a nice thumb drive. Even if I'm not planning on just keeping it for myself and reusing it, I say, well, I got to figure out who this belongs to. I pop it in my computer to see if there's anything on the thumb drive that I can ID who it belongs to. If you have it set up so that it's auto run, the minute that's plugged in, it's already loaded. We've seen before where there's combination attacks. People will distribute flyers to your company's building. Hey, we got this company, this site that sells electronics, and we do 25% discount to their employees. So we'd like to leave some of these stacks of flyers for you that has all the website and email addresses on them. Happens all the time. Pizza menus, things like that. I bet you any receptionist will be like, oh, 25%. That's great. You want it to work really well? Do it right before Christmas. Go in there in November and drop those off. Everybody's trying to buy the new iPads and laptops and everything for their kids. And when you say, hey, we're giving you 25% off of our already low prices, that's a nice discount. So most people would go out and take a look at that. We've seen where people will show up and, oh, I'm here for an interview. I forgot to print my resume. This is really important. You know, I'll get the receptionist. Hey, I have my resume on this thumb drive. Can you just print it off for me? And it'll have a copy of my resume on it. But it also has malware on it too that's running as soon as she puts it in. So it's absolutely a lot of different ways for them to get in. Why does it work? You know, we look at it right now and we say, some of these things are so crazy. When you see the ones that are, you know, someone sending an email from some South African prince that has $2.5 million that they want to give you in your email, you just, yeah, okay, whatever. You know, you inherited $1 billion from some person in Ireland that was related to you 20 generations ago. I don't think they're really concerned about Mike in Pittsburgh when they're making out their will if they haven't seen me from, you know, 10 generations. People don't really know the sensitivity of the data that they have. You know, I've heard so many people where, you know, they say they left their computer unlocked, and I'm talking to them about why they need to lock the computer, and they say, hey, if somebody really wants the data that's on my computer, let them have it. I don't care. The problem is that they don't realize that they have access to sensitive data, or that I can get sensitive data off of their machine. They don't know who's allowed to have the data. So if I have access, I'm in security, and I have access to some parts of HR data, employee numbers and things like that, I may not know who's allowed to get that. Who am I allowed to tell that to? So if I'm working with some other security person and I say, well, I need an employee ID for this guy, am I allowed to give that to him? Seems harmless enough, you know. What's he going to do with an employee number? Is it even the right person I'm talking to? We don't have a way, in a lot of companies, there's no way to verify who you're talking to. You look on the phone and you say, well, caller ID said it was Tony Smith. You can't really bank on that. We all want to be helpful. You know, we've all taught when customers, coworkers, senior management calls and says they need information from you. We all want to be helpful. We don't want to be the one that turned down the CEO's request for information when they called and said, hey, this is the CEO, I need this information right now for an important meeting on it. Nobody wants to be that guy that says, no sir, I'm sorry, you can't have it. Then my boss's boss calls my boss, who then calls me and says, what are you doing? Why did you give it to him? Because he wasn't supposed to have it, but he's the CEO. Well, I didn't have a way to know who he was. This guy on the right here, everybody knows who he is, but if for those who don't, Kevin Mitnick. Looks like an upstanding businessman. Wearing a nice suit, you know, nice haircut. You know, he looks very trustworthy. Well, you know, he's done more social engineering than most people. And at this point, I don't think he's allowed to touch a computer. So, and the end users who are out there don't know all the threats. They don't know these different statuses and all these different methods that people can use to attack you. They don't know. They're focused on their core business. If there's somebody who's a chemist, they're working on chemistry stuff. Their concern is not social engineering. They're working on the core aspects of their business. What we're going to look at is a couple of recent attacks through 2011, what specifically went on, and how it worked. And then there's another one I tacked on at the end too. It's going to be a little more recent. RSA, most people have heard about the RSA hack and the intrusion into RSA. That was actually a really big one. I was really surprised by that. Oak Ridge National Laboratory, they're a Department of Energy lab. They were compromised in April 2011. At DEF CON 19, anybody go to DEF CON 19? No? All right. They had a social engineering capture the flag at DEF CON. And it was really surprising how much they got and how easy it really was. Wells Fargo Bank. When you look down the list, because these are not companies that are low tech or low security. These are companies, RSA especially, their primary mission is security. I can put all the walls up I want around my network and say, you know what, let them try to hack it. There's no way they can get in through my network. Well, they don't have to. They just make a phone call and get in. They don't have to try to hack through. You got all this technology in place, but the technology that's up here for all the end users, that's what needs to be upgraded. RSA, the RSA one was actually, really, it should have never happened. In the grand scheme of things, it should have never happened. They sent an email to two separate small groups of people with the 2011 recruitment plan Excel file attached. And the RSA's technology side of it did exactly what it was supposed to do. It classified it as junk mail and it dumped it into the junk mail folder. It did exactly what it was supposed to do. The problem was, they're still delivering junk mail to the end user. So they still have access to it. So instead of filtering it at the server, they're filtering it, classifying it as junk, and leaving it on the end user's computer. So now the end user can go in and say, I'm going to check my junk mail every once in a while, open it up just to make sure nothing got miscategorized. Oh, 2011 recruitment plan. That sounds like it might be something interesting. Well, take a look at it. All it took was one. Went out, opened it, boom. Installed a backdoor, and they were able to get in and get information. Once they got in, RSA controls the secure ID tokens. They have all the hashes, or they have all the seed files, all the seed records for all the secure IDs. So if your company uses secure IDs, they have this information on the seed records on RSA servers. Once I have all the seed records, one part of your two-factor authentication is now out the window. So if I know your company, your seed record, I know who's using what, and I can get to that record, now all I got to do is social engineer a PIN out of you. Easy enough. So then what they did was, once they gathered all this information, had all the files ready to go, they had a hacked web server. So of course I'm not going to just send it to my own web server. I went out and hacked one and sent all the files over there. Oak Ridge National Laboratory. These guys, they're a Department of Energy lab that was formed way back during the Manhattan Project. So you can kind of guess they're probably an atomic energy lab of some sort. Over 500 emails went to them over the course of a couple days with click here for more information. None of this got filtered out. It got in, somebody clicked the more information link, it installed the malware, it starts sending data outside the company. Luckily, somebody from there said, hey, there's a lot of data going on here. What's going on? They were monitoring the pipes at least and said, hey, there's a lot of data going on. What is this? And they started looking at it and went, oh my God. Shut off the internet connection. Shut off email. It was down for probably about a week. No internet email, nothing for a week. Shut off from the world. On a lab. That's a big impact to business. You think they use the internet for anything at a research lab? Probably. Probably a little bit. So that's, even though looking at the information, they may not have gotten any information outside of the lab. So nothing of any value may have even made it outside of the lab. But it still impacted their business. What's the cost of not having internet for a week? What's the cost of not being able to send or receive an email for a week? It's an impact to your business. This one was actually pretty funny and scary at the same time. They had a capture the flag at DEF CON 19 this past year, and they actually took 14 different companies And most of them were pretty big companies. And they said, here's 62 pieces of information that you're allowed to get. How many of these can you get out of these different 14 companies? And surprisingly enough, AT&T came in first place. Now, to me, when I look at it, there really isn't a first place. Every single one of these 14 companies gave up some information. Not one company completely shut down every single person that was trying to social engineer them. They all got some information. AT&T was the one with the most resistance. So they had people questioning them and asking them questions about it. But they still gave them the information. Oracle came in dead last. They had so much information they were getting from Oracle, it was crazy. They had one where they had a contestant call and pretend to be part of the IT department, and he got the entire configuration for this woman's machine. Every piece of information about what OS, what versions of Adobe she was running, what versions of Flash. He was taking her through configuration and saying, can you give me this information here? She absolutely complied with no problem. And Chris Agnew said, it was so scary because she was so willing. It was, you kind of expect somebody to say, well, why do you really need this information? You expect a little bit. Nothing. They just, sure, no problem. Wells Fargo, this was a really good one. This was actually February this year. A social engineer actually called Wells Fargo and, he sent faxes request to transfer $2.1 million from a big healthcare conglomerate, Catholic Healthcare West, into a bank account in Hong Kong. Now, the way he was able to do this and make this seem legit is they were going through a big merger at the time. The Catholic Healthcare West was merging with another company, so they had a little bit of approval that they needed from the local county board. So the county board was nice enough to put the paperwork up there that they presented to the board that showed, well, we're going to combine, this is the bank we're going to use, no account numbers, but just, here, we're going to combine accounts, we're going to combine accounts at this U.S. bank, here at Wells Fargo, this is what we're going to do. And it had the signature on this paper from the CFO for both companies. From that, he was able to go through and put together a fax request for transfer of funds with the signature of the CFO on it and fax it to the bank. Nobody from the bank stopped and said, why is Catholic Healthcare sending $2.1 million to Hong Kong? That seems a little unusual. No, took it absolutely at face value. They didn't stop to question it until the second request came in for another $2.1 million. And then they finally went, okay, wait, $4 million, now we're start talking about real money. Now it's getting serious. $2 million, that's like, that's interest on our checking accounts for the week. Wells Fargo then had to reimburse Catholic Healthcare for $2.1 million because it was an unauthorized transfer. So that one social engineering cost Wells Fargo $2.1 million. It's crazy when you see the average cost of $25,000 to $100,000. Sometimes you get ones like this that bring the average up a little bit. And then we had a late edition. I thought this was great. I just saw a news story that one of my hometown guys, I'm from Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh, PA man, conned Citibank into changing the mailing address and sending a debit card to him from Paul Allen, who was one of the Microsoft co-founders. So Paul Allen, now he doesn't live in California anymore. He lives in Pittsburgh. And oh, by the way, I need you to send me out a new debit card. And they sent it. And he had the debit card in his hand. He was going and trying to use it. I think his big thing is he could have probably made a bunch of purchases on it, and it may have worked. But he tried to do transfers. He wanted to try to do a Western Union money transfer with it. And I think Western Union is what caught it when they were like, well, you're sending $20,000. We're going to verify this and make sure that it's legit. And it wasn't, so they canceled that. He canceled the card. No harm, no foul, but how easy was that to do? To just say, hi, I'm Paul Allen. Let me get this address changed. Call centers. The big call centers are always the biggest ones because they got so many calls coming in. If you've got a huge call center, maybe like 100 people, there's so many calls coming in. Their goal is typically turning the call over How many calls are you taking a day? If it's a service desk or help desk, how many resolutions can I get? If I can get you some information and close your call, that's a resolution for me. I get you out of there as quick as possible. So if I'm just looking for a small piece of information, I call up, get it, bang, I'm out. What we're going to talk about is some policy tips and items that you can put in just to kind of help strengthen the defenses. Like I said, you're never going to get 100%. You're never going to get where it's absolutely, we have an impenetrable fortress of social engineering. It will never, ever happen. That, you know, I'd like to say that if you do all these things and you do all the, it will never happen, but sometimes, regardless of how much you educate people, they just don't do it. So you want to make sure that you do as much as you can. One of the biggies is know your information. You can't, I mean, if you can, God bless you, that's a great thing, to go out and classify every single file on your network and say, this is how confidential this is. This is how confidential this is. It's near impossible to go through and do that without a lot of help. But if you can get some categories of information, HR, person identifiable information, configuration information, vendor account information, and say, here are the categories, and here's the category of sensitivity for that information. Here's how that information can be transferred. So now I know when I have something and I say, like we had before, the employee number. Well, someone wants this employee number. I look and say, well, that's HR information, and I'm not allowed to do that unless I get permission from HR. Okay, then I'm going to do that. It's easier for compliance. It's easier for the people who are using the data to then comply to it if they have a real simple set of slots that I can put something into. I can put it into a particular category and say, this is what it is. It makes it simple. You can go through, and I put this on here because, I mean, some people have done this, no transmission of sensitive information to outside email addresses without permission from compliance or security. You get this a lot of times where, and I've seen probably the most when we're looking at DLP and data loss prevention, some of the worst culprits of sending data outside that they shouldn't be, lawyers. They're sending email about legal cases and litigation via email to another law firm, sending them the information out. Well, wait, you know, you're asking them, hey, can you give me your advice on this case? You know, here's all the information, here's all the, you know, the data. For our company, we make medications, we make pharmaceutical drugs. You know, there may be healthcare information in there. When we're talking about a litigation, if they're suing me because of some product, I might say, well, here's the reaction that they had, here's the medical symptoms that they had, here's all the information. HIPAA information is going out there too. So, you know, they think, well, I've got to send them this information so they can help me with the case. But you got to find a better way to do it. Thumb drives, like we were talking about with the thumb drives. How many times do we have people who bring in thumb drives from home to take data home? It happens all the time. And the thing that scares me the most is back when this first started happening, you know, you'd have like a 1 gig thumb drive, or, you know, if you were lucky, you know, I got an 8 gig. You know, I get the little pocket hard drives that's like, you know, 500 gig. How much of your company's information can I get out with that 500 gig drive? And to you, when you're looking at it, well, I copied down to my machine. If I get fired or leave the company, you say, well, we wiped the machine. So that data's gone. He doesn't have it anywhere else. Well, yeah, I got it. And I took it with me. But there's also the potential that, what else do I have loaded on that thumb drive? Do I have a virus on my home machine and I'm going to bring it into work now because I'm bringing in this thumb drive? So the potential exists for a lot of different damage to happen from just having thumb drives being allowed. So it really is easier to say no. If you have something where you have a legitimate need, where someone says, you know, for my work, I've got to use a thumb drive. There's a lot of really secure thumb drives. I've used like the Iron Keys, they're not bad. The Locket drives, I think, are like really, really simple. And what it does is it just has a keypad on the thumb drive itself. and you punch in your number, it light turns green, you plug it in. No extra software, no software encryption, it's all hardware encryption. And they're pretty indestructible. They won't withstand a 45 caliber shell, just before anybody tests that, but you know, take my word for it, it won't. But those are good because then there's no chance of me losing it, there's no chance of me losing that information. Some of the ones like the Iron Key, the good thing with that is I can actually do a remote wipe on it. So if I'm managing those within the company, they plug it in, it connects out to the internet, it'll remote wipe that drive. So if I have an employee leave the company and they still have that Iron Key that I know may have company data on it, I send a remote wipe out to the server. As soon as that goes in, now it needs an internet connection. It's got to go check out to the internet and verify. Once it does, it'll close. Or if you have a company, a person that needs, you know, maybe you want to just lock it down. I don't want to wipe the drive, but the guy's, you know, kind of on the fence. We're thinking about firing him. We don't want to wipe all this information yet. You can do the same thing like you do with a BlackBerry. You can push out a thing to lock the drive with a different code. So it'll change the code on it. So the data will still remain intact, but it'll change the code. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. A strong password policy has got to be in place, and it's got to be something that you can enforce technology-wise. You can't, you know, whether you're doing it with setting the AD password rules or whatever your networking password rules are, you don't want to have something where you say, well, you should be using a strong password, but you know, if you use a weak one, yeah, we can't do anything about that. You want to make sure that it absolutely, you have to have it. Another big one too is a clear screen and desk policy. When you look at when I was talking about the physical intrusions and me getting into the door, once I am in the door, I don't even have to try to put malware on your machine or get you to click on something or open up a thumb drive. If you're out at lunch and your computer's sitting there unlocked, I walk up, just sit down at your desk, and I got probably a whole hour during lunch hour that I can sit there and do whatever I want on that computer. I can install whatever I want. I can install some keylogger software. I can put everything to where I want it to go. So you want to make sure that people are doing it. If you're an organization that's primary on laptops, everybody's got a laptop. There's two locks. Lock it with a cable lock to the desk, and make sure it's locked in the dock. Because I can't tell you how many desks I've gone over, and I walk over and I look and like, oh yeah, they're cable locked to the desk. Hit the eject button on the dock and just pick it right up. And what good was that lock? I just walked away with it anyway. And leaving sensitive data out on your desk. You get a lot of people who are busy. You know, we got all this stuff scattered on our desk. You know, you leave files sitting out. If I'm walking through the building and I'm kind of just scanning to see what's going on, I see something that looks like it may be an HR file or, you know, something interesting. Pick it up, keep walking, you know, and I'm going to walk out the door with it. So the odds are good. If I'm in there being malicious, I'm not going to go rifle through your desk. I don't want to get caught going through drawers and have you come walking back from lunch and I say, I'm here from desktop. Why are you going through my drawer? So, you know, I'd rather not get caught doing that. I mean, I will anyway sometimes, but. So, keep stuff cleared away and make sure it's included in policy that you say, keep it cleared away. We're talking about phones. A lot of times, you know, and you can test this on your particular phone system. I know our phone system in general, we've looked at, and it's, even if I spoof a caller ID number that is an internal number to our group, it still shows up as an external call, which was good, because I was really thinking, oh, please, 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 don't let this put the name on this caller ID and the other information pop up. What you want to check, though, is to see how your switchboard calls come in. If someone calls into your switchboard and then transfers to an extension, how'd that show up? Show up internal, show up external. I can maybe be calling from external, get transferred in through the switchboard, I know your extension, you look down at your phone and you're like, it's an internal call. He must be here as an employee. He's an employee at our company. He can have that information. So it implies a level of trust to me that I really don't deserve because I'm not in your company. Build some sort of verification. If you don't have one already, or a place that you can verify something, I need some place, be it your call center, your help desk, your frontline people who are taking the phone calls, HR, people who are asking them for information, they need some place they can go to verify who this person is. If you're like a lot of organizations, internally, there's a lot of information about individual employees available, employee numbers, who they report to, what department they're in. That's all available. A lot of times in the employee directory, I can go out and look that up. So you want to make sure that it's something that will be unique. If you want to use verification password questions, those will work out. Some people use like mother's maiden name, last four of the social, but something that will let me determine who someone is, so that I can easily say, at least, are they who they say that they are? Build into the policy something that says, hey, maybe we need a callback. If someone calls in looking for information that might be sensitive, passwords, HR data, we say we're going to call them back. Because I don't want to give somebody my phone number. If I'm calling a social engineer, I don't necessarily want to give my phone number. I may have a throwaway cell phone that I'm using just for this particular engagement, but I don't necessarily want to give them the phone number and let them have an opportunity to think about it. Because between the time where they hang up the phone and I've instilled that sense of urgency in them, I need it right now, I need it right now. I want to get it from them then. Quickly get the information, get out of there. So if you have a chance where that person from HR or from security says, well, I didn't call you back with this information. Our policy says that I have to call you back with this information. And insist that they stick to the policy, then that person's going to get a little more nervous. Maybe when I'm done, I'm going to get off the phone and say, Tom, somebody just called me from security and they said they wanted some information, HR related, about this guy. They wanted like what his pay grade was and this kind of stuff that they normally wouldn't need. I'm going to call him back. What do you think about that? So there's an opportunity then for some dialogue with somebody within their department to maybe put a little pause on it and give them the opportunity to think about it before they give away the company. Social media. Just a session this morning. Anybody go to the one this morning about the buy and farm bill? It's good, but you really need to make sure that you're putting together a good, sound social media policy. It's here. Whether you use it at work, whether it's blocked at your company, it's here. It's not going away. It's going to be here, and you're going to have information out there about your company, whether you like it or not. So your best bet is to get a grip around it first and really determine what can people share out there about your company. Give them some best practices. Can they even say, some companies will go so restrictive on a social media policy, say you can't even indicate on your Facebook page that you work for our company. We don't even want you to put that out there that you work for us. We don't want that out there because we don't want anyone to know who our employees are. Make it clear when they're talking about stuff on social media. I mean, everyone's first reaction, that knee-jerk reaction when someone says something bad about your company that you know is absolutely not true. You want to jump out there and defend them. And you really need to watch and let people watch that because you need to understand your role. I'm not communications for my company. I am not the person that's getting paid insane amounts of money to do that. That person is the one that should be controlling any responses to that. I shouldn't be out there defending them, putting that information together. Even though I want to, I don't speak for my company. The communications people speak for our company. I don't speak for our company. So they need to make it clear because we all post on, people post things on business-related sites, things that are related to security for our areas. You might get people from the pharmaceutical areas that are posting things about pharma. And they need to make sure that they're keeping it separate. What's really, this is what I think versus this is my company stance. Just in general, let them know. Keep it personal. Try not to discuss work. We all want to go out and vent. You have that day where you come home from work and you're like, oh, You know, and if anybody has those kind of friends on Facebook, the one that are constantly screaming and hollering and I hate my job and, you know, my boss is an idiot and, you know, don't talk about work. No, you want to include on here, this is another one, no using a corporate logo on their personal page. Keep the corporate logo off of anything you're putting together. So even if I'm trying to say, here's the company I work for, and it has the logo on it, no. Very bad. Keep it off of there. It indicates a tighter connection than it should be. You've got the Bayer logo out on my website, and so now I'm a representative of Bayer. This seems like it would be really simple. Really, you kind of one of them, duh. No confidential proprietary information. This goes back to what we just said. Sometimes people don't understand the level of confidentiality of what they're working on. I'm working on some new drug for cancer that's going to cure cancer. And, I post out there, hey, I'm so excited. We're so close to this cure for cancer. I can't wait. It's going to be probably another couple of months before it's out. To him, he's just excited about what he's doing. I really like this. I like this thing that I'm doing. It's really important, but I've just spilled the beans. Now maybe I've got a competitor that's working on the same thing, and he's 5 or 6 months out. And he's going, oh my God, hey, the Bayer's like 2 months out from making this work. We got to speed it up. We got to put more resources in it. We got to be first to market. So now they speed up. They put a bunch more money into it, and they beat us to market by a couple months. All because somebody just said, hey, this is what I'm working on. Very innocent. So what's the financial loss then to the company of saying, we were going to be the first. We were going to be the first out to the market, and now we're not. It needs to contain the disciplinary actions for violating this policy. What is it? Are they going to be reprimanded? Are you going to write them up? Or is that going to be potentially based off of if I'm this guy that just cost the company $1 million, could it be up to termination and losing my job? Always, always, always reserve the right to request that certain items be removed. So if I'm out there scanning the social networking and I see that, hey, Dr. Thomas is working on this cancer cure, just posted something on Facebook all about it and how he's working on it. It's going to be ready in 2 months. Let's call him up and say, get that off of there. You signed, you agreed to the social networking policy, you agreed to it. In there it says we have the right to tell you to take it off. Take it off. Make sure it's in there. This one, I thought this was fun. LinkedIn, we're sometimes IT is the worst at this. LinkedIn, if you go out and look at somebody who's a tech person on LinkedIn, we've got every single technology we've ever worked on. I'm Cisco certified, I'm GSEC certified, I'm CISSP, I got all this information out here on all the technologies at my current company that I work on, things in previous companies that I've worked on. And it's the same thing as Facebook. There's a lot of those that are wide open. You put your information out on LinkedIn, there's privacy settings on LinkedIn, just like there is on Facebook, and you put all this information out there, and it's available. So not only is it available to potential people looking to hire you, or people looking to network with you, but it's to network with malicious people too, and you don't know about it. I thought this site was great, the ratemynetworkdiagram.com. If you've never seen this is like an unbelievable site. I love it. It's basically IT people go out and they post network diagrams of their network, including internal IP addresses. Sometimes there's the hardware type. They'll say, well, this is a Cisco 2120, and its internal IP is this. And I look at that and go, oh man, I gotta wipe the drool off. That's too easy. God, once I'm in the door, I can open it up like my Disney park map and say, okay, where do I want to go? Ooh, here's the mail server. Oh, and it's the IP address too. That's great. I can open up the menu. What do I want to eat today? We talked about with the RSA intrusion, junk mail should never, ever, ever, unless it cannot be avoided at all, go to the end user. If you have something that you're classifying as junk mail, drop it at the server. Don't drop it into a user's junk mail folder, because as you saw, they will open it. You know, curiosity killed the cat, and your network too, because they're going to go out and say, oh, this looks like it might be something interesting. Click on it, boom. You know, I might not even know about it. It's a PDF file. I open it up, oh, it's blank. Oh well, delete. No, it wasn't blank. It had all kind of stuff in there. You just didn't see it. The attachments, at least, a lot of people, I know most companies are probably doing this already because we get those all the time. Executable, batch script, VB scripts. No, no attachments with this. It happens all the time, you know, where we get the ones where, you know, even in IT, we're trying to send a VB script to somebody else, and you know, we go, oh, it's blocked. Damn. Okay, well, let's zip it. Then it'll go through. You know, yep, it made it through zipped. So there's still ways to get around it, but at least it makes it a little bit more difficult. If you have any kind of DLP solutions, the data loss prevention, sometimes it'll tell people, hey, looks like you're sending a social security number out. You know, you sure you want to do that? You know, you'll get at least a warning saying, hey, Joe Smith sent out something that looks like a social security number, looks like an account number. Here's the information that he sent out. I can then go back to him and say, oh no, oh nay, you can't be sending that out. So it helps if you look at some of them. There's a couple in the expo hall that will help you with that too. When we talk about end user awareness training, it's real important. And I can't stress it enough that above and beyond, you can have all the greatest policies in the world. If I have policies that covers when you can breathe and go to the bathroom, and you know, I cover every single piece of the spectrum in my policies, and the end user doesn't know anything about it, it's useless. If I have a security policy that's 450 pages, and they're required to go out and read it once a year and sign off that they read it, put something at the very end of it that says, you know, a particular email. Email over to security@ourcompany.com and let us know what you thought about this document. Or to verify that you read this, put that in there. And see how many you get back. Probably none. They're going through, opening it up, they're waiting for the training to time out, and then they go in, click OK. You know, I'm not reading all that. You know, it's common sense anyway. Don't give your password to people. You know, I know all about that. But you need to have, HR always has their initial training. When you come in and you sit down with HR, most companies will sit there and tell you all about their benefits package and your retirement, and they'll spend an entire first working day, 8-hour day, going over all this, signing you up for your benefits and getting all this information. When it comes to training on security awareness, that all goes out the window. It's like, you know, all right, just don't give anybody your password, okay? Make it a good password, don't give it. Okay, that's good. That's the extent usually of your training for some places. When I went through this presentation beforehand with my wife, she's not technical. She works doing like loan processing, and she's not very technical. And I went through the whole spiel and the presentation with her, and she's sitting there going, "Do people actually do that?" And I said, "Yeah, they do." She's like, "Oh my God." I said, "Well, I'm guessing that your company doesn't have a very good awareness training program then if you had no idea that that even goes on." At a minimum, it needs to be annual. Every single year. It drives me nuts because most companies will enforce that and say, well, you can't make them do it that often. We can't force them to do it. Twice a year it is much, much better. I recommend at least twice a year. It gets the impression, it gets it in front of them, and it makes it so that they can see what's going on a lot sooner. It keeps it fresh in their mind, it keeps them aware of it. When you're doing this, it needs to be everybody. What will happen most often is people say, well, we're going to make this required for all of our employees. So all of our direct hire employees, they're all required to take this training as part of HR training. But we're going to exclude all the contractors. All of our guards are outsourced, so we can't really enforce that with them. But we're not going to make them do that either. You know, telephone operators, who cares? You know, people, cafeteria employees, who cares? We're not worried about them. They all need to be included in the training because they're all potential entry points into your company. So no matter what your job responsibility is, the guards should know about that, the physical aspects of it. So when they're walking around the building, they see somebody walking over by the dumpster, their first response isn't, it's just trash, I don't care. In person, best way to do it, you can make sure that people are paying attention. You know, if I walk around the room here and sit there and like, who's napping? You know, it keeps people paying attention to it at least. If you do it in a CDT, like we said with the policy one, it tends to get glossed over. So if you can do it in person, that's the best thing. If you have a huge, wide, geographically diverse group or company, do a train the trainer thing. Train one of your people over the phone that's at that site and let them train the people at that site. Set the expectations right from the get-go. So when you're talking about the training, if you could tell them in absolutes, no one from IT is ever going to ask you for your password. Never should you give out any HR information over the phone. If you can give them the absolutes and say, these are things that will happen, I will remember that later. So I will be sure to say, oh, okay, when someone calls me and says, I'm from IT, and I need your password. And I say, wait, I remember during the training, they said, never. Will they ever? There's never an occasion where that will ever happen. I'm going to remember that, and I'm going to say, no, they said that no one would ever ask me for my password. There's never an occasion that will happen. Give them some help on creating a good password. We get a lot of that where people, we say, you must have a strong password. But nobody gives them any guidance on how to do that. So they either go through and they create a really, really strong password that's, 12 characters long and has special characters, and then they write it on a Post-it note and stick it under their mouse pad so that they can actually remember it. But if you teach them the correct way, hey, come up with a phrase, use a phrase or something and say, use the first letter from each phrase and then make the middle one an uppercase and add a number at the end, or, and give them some suggestions on ideas and ways that they could do it. It will help 1,000 times over on getting that enforced. It will help 1,000 times over getting people to do a good memorable password and not write it down. If you're doing training on an individual group, if you're training, I recommend if you're doing an in-person training, train groups separately. Get your HR people all together, get your IT service desk people together, get your operators together in separate sessions so that you can give them specific examples of things that they might get. If you're a telephone operator and all you do all day long is sit there and reroute calls, well, when I'm talking to them about social engineering, I'm tailoring that all mostly toward the phone. Here's the things that people could call and ask you for. They'll call up and say, can you give me the phone number for the head of IT security? Should you give that information to them? If I'm trying to figure out who that person is, that's an easy thing to do. Call. Do it around lunchtime when I know that the person's probably not there. Call, get the voicemail, I got their name, I know what they sound like. Maybe I can try to, use my impersonation skills and call up to the help desk and impersonate them. But give them the areas of what do you do when someone's calling you? What do you do when a vendor calls for information? Do we have somebody in procurement? We just say, hey, when a vendor calls and they're asking for information about a quote, about information, they all go to a procurement email. Procurement then turns around and calls them back. So you're not giving them any information at all. You guys, if you want to be a vendor for a company, send an email to vendors@bear.com and it'll go to procurement. Procurement will look it over and they'll put the information together, direct it to the right person internally, and then if they want to call you, they'll call you. So if they send it to the IT security manager and the IT security manager says, I've never even heard of this guy, I'm not really interested in it, then they can just turn it down. A big portion to your training really should be on this last thing here. What do you do when someone calls and specifically says, I need you to violate this policy? I know you got a policy on not emailing out, but I'm in a huge bind. I got this big problem going on and I've got to have this information right now or I'm going to get fired. I got to get this from my boss and it's crucial. We're going to feel bad. Oh, I hate to be the one that's responsible for this guy getting fired. because I didn't provide him information. I stuck hard and fast to the policy, and maybe he got fired. But I look at it usually this way. I'm not going to take one for the team and say, well, I'll get fired rather than him. I don't want to be the one when they trace back that information and say, who gave this information out, and they trace that back to me, and it's on me. I don't want that to be connected back to me. So you want to teach them, how do you approach that? How do you do that? Who can approve a violation of the policy or an exception to the policy? Can I say, okay, if someone's calling for HR information, you can then send them to HR, and HR can then determine whether they're going to give them that information. Whatever the policy is for your company, give them a clear-cut way to do it. Teach them how to do it. Within the training, I also think that the best thing that you can do is make it real simple for people to report attempts. If somebody calls me or they send me a phishing email and they're looking for information, especially when it's specific information, they're trying to tailor it directly to a particular piece of information. I'm trying to find usernames. I'm trying to find the technical lingo that you use at your company for different items or technologies that you use. You want to make sure that there's a way that the end users can turn around and report that to you and let you know that this is going on. The easiest way to do it, put up a web page on the internet that has fields for everything that you need to know. Who was it that they called? What did the caller ID say? Who did they say they were? What information were they asking you for? Were they really trying to put the pressure hold on you for it? Were they, and get enough so that you can get all the information. If you can't get that, and if you're in your organization, that's just not going to happen. Something as simple as sending an email to security. That's something. Create an incident for every single one of these that comes in, regardless of how stupid it might be. If it's the Nigerian scam of, we want to give you your lottery winnings or your Microsoft lottery winnings. Even if your whole incident investigation involves just sending an email to the provider of the email, whether you have a Hotmail account or a Gmail account, just sending an email to the abuse at Hotmail or abuse@gmail.com will usually get that account shut off. So if that's your whole response to one of them, hey, it's the typical Nigerian emails. What am I going what am I supposed to investigate there? It's going to go back to somebody, in a different country on a different set of laws, and I'm not going to be able to do anything. At least I can shut that off. I can shut that down so that nobody else is going to fall for it. Publicize the heck out of this tool. Get your newsletters out, get your information out to them. Make sure that everybody knows that this exists. So it needs to be so that everybody knows it, everybody remembers it. Something as simple as, report.company.com, something real easy. When you get these incidents and these reports in, and you're working these incidents and you're doing what you're doing with them, publicize the metrics to your management on how many of these you got. We got 15 reports. People are starting to be more aware. We got 15, 20 people who signed up and sent these reports in to us. They were all legit. They were all phishing emails. They were all people trying to be social engineered. It was all legit. We investigated it. We did what we could do, and we moved on with it. I like to turn around and usually either, when I say reward people who are participating in this, it's not necessarily giving them something. You could get little keychains or security things. Hey, we appreciate it. We used to do notepads and things like that. Those were always good. We appreciate you being proactive on security. Thanks for sending this to us. You don't want it to be too valuable. Because A, number one, it drives your budget up, and B, people start making stuff up. Hey, send me an email that looks like a phishing email from some fake Gmail address. I need another calendar. It happens. It happens. When you get these incidents and you're working them, the first thing that should happen from the incident is send an email or a newsletter out through your communication or through whoever to say, hey, keep an eye out for this. So-and-so got an email about this sort of information. Keep an eye out for this, especially if you're seeing there's a bunch of them. You get 5 or 6 people who have all got emails that are around this particular thing. Obviously, someone's maybe targeting you to try to get some information. So make an effort to try to be proactive and send that out and say, hey, proactive slash little proactive. Hey, this is what's going on. Don't fall for it. Remember your training that you went through. Because it should be fresh in your mind. You only had it 6 months ago. One of the big things when you're talking about the program, and you have to go through and audit the program. How many people have had this guy auditing them? That's what I feel like every time the auditor shows up. You want to start with really, when you're auditing the program and you're trying to say, okay, we've done all this training and we've done updated policies and we want to see how it works. Is it working? How do we know? Well, when you're going through, start with an outline of what you want to do, because a lot of times when we're looking at social engineering, it involves me going out and trying to get information or trying to get people in my organization to click on links or give me information. So, what am I going to gather? Is it sensitive, and does your team have permission to see that data? So if you're going to be gathering this data, you know, okay, well, I'm trying to gather HR data from them. Are you allowed to get that? Is your team members allowed to see that data? Probably not. When you're looking at third parties, we had FishMe. They're out actually in the vendor hall. Really good company. And you can actually craft a social engineering attack against your company, against a specific group, without getting all the sensitive information. If I had one that says, I want to try to gather a username and password, I can go through and say, okay, FishMe is going to send out this email that's going to ask for the username and password on the website. The website's going to look just like my internal web page, my logos and everything all over. And then in the end, what we're going to do is it's going to just gather the username. And then it's going to tell me whether they put a password in. So it's not going to gather the password at all. It'll just gather the username and it won't ever send that. And then what we can do is it actually tracks through the metrics. So it will actually metric the whole thing on whether or not it's working. Schedule every single attempt that you make. If you're going to do an on-site phishing attempt, and you're going to try to go do a little dumpster diving, make sure you have an engagement letter that says you're allowed to be doing this, signed by someone, and has a phone number of somebody that they can call right now to verify. Because the odds are real good that you may be spending the evening in jail otherwise. Because unless you can convince the police officer who shows up while I'm hanging over the dumpster that, no, it's legit, I'm really at work here. No. Search for your weaknesses. They had the thing about the diggity alerts. Find where you're vulnerable and then start closing some of the gaps. Desktop audit visits, go walk around. Walk around, make sure that they have all the information out there. They're locked, their computer's locked. Put this information on the internet for your management to see. This is how good we're doing. Look at how well we're doing now. Make it public internally. For the love of Bill Gates, don't put it anywhere external, because you don't want to make some social engineer says, you know, look at how much we've improved in our social engineering. And then they say, challenge accepted. You're next on the list, because now that you're sitting there touting and saying how great you are, I'm going to test you. In the end, I know I'm running a little bit late anyway here, but in the end, you need to keep it all working together. With the policy, build the policy into the training, go back and audit to make sure that your training is working, and then report that information up and make sure that it's working. Management, if you're asking upper management for money to develop a social engineering program, they want to see that it's working. Show me some hard data that says it's working. So when you have the graphs and the data and say, these are how many people fell for it last month, these are how many fell for it this month, and it's going down, because we're educating them. The thumb drives that you guys got has a somewhat older version of this presentation on it. If you would like the new one, you can drop me an email, Egenlauf@msn.com, and I'll fire out a new copy of the email. Or I think they might be putting them up on the website too. So I think they might put them out on the MISTI site. So, any questions?
Yeah. If you have 10,000 employees, how do you look at their Facebook sites?
You can. I mean, you're not going to visit 20,000.
So I have no idea how it works.
You can actually, there's a website called Social Mention. that'll actually do a search across social networking sites, Twitter, blogs, stuff like that, looking for your company name.
So, I mean, I'm a children's hospital. Everybody, I mean, we have our own corporate Facebook site. We have a social networking department.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and so what they're publishing is different than what employees are putting out.
Right, but you'll see a steady feed there, and you'll be able to look down through, and you'll see, hey, this is coming from our children's hospital managing department. This is coming from this person. And you'll see it a little more in context. You could do it too with like the Diggity alerts. Like if you download Diggity alerts, you can put in all your domain names and your information. It'll just go out and start looking for stuff where you're, where they can find information on your company. Social mention, I think, even has an option that you can do a reminder as well. Like it'll go out and look and see where when your group gets mentioned, and it'll fire that email off.